In the summer of 2020, Gregory Dugas volunteered with the Mi'kmaq Pollinator Project, a project dedicated to placing Indigenous youth at the forefront of native pollinator conservation. In his home territory of mainland Mi'kma'ki, Nova Scotia, Gregory participated in the rescue and rearing of over 125 bumblebee colonies that were otherwise in danger of being euthanized by property owners. These colonies were placed in mobile habitats and given food to help them recover from the stress of moving. They were treated for pests and then reintroduced to the terrain around Mi'kmaq communities to help revitalize the pollinator population in that area. During this work, Gregory and his sister Sarah became very familiar with the lifestyles of these bees, as well as the many challenges they face as climate change continues to reduce native pollinator populations. He would like to talk about some of these challenges now.
Hello, my name is Gregory Dugas, and I am a Mi'kmaq youth from Millburg First Nations in Nova Scotia. Through the spring and summer of 2020, I did a lot of bumblebee work, assisting with removing nests from unwanted locations and relocating the colonies to more suitable locations within First Nation communities. Unfortunately, I began to notice bumblebee nests were unhealthy. Bumblebees are being affected by a variety of things. Pesticides, habitat loss, and illness are already assisting with decreasing population in bees. When you add climate change to the list, we should be even more concerned. Consequences for not taking action now could lead to loss of species. So why would you want to raise local bumblebees anyways? The short answer is that it helps with the environment. A little bit longer of an answer includes bee health, pollination, and climate change. Let's talk about climate change for a few minutes. Climate change, also known as global warming, simply put, is the process of our planet heating up.
In March of 2021, Gregory Dugas and Peter Steiner from the Confederacy of Mainland Mi'kmaq spoke to Jason Sproul. Jason is the provincial apiculturalist for Nova Scotia. We asked him to comment on the commercial import of bumblebees and what happens after they're brought into the province.
There are many kind of corollaries to climate change factor effects on pollinator populations that are well addressed by researchers at academic institutions, etc. I think one of the things that Greg and I found in our more practical kind of hands-on work is that homeowners were often experiencing repeated residence of bumblebees in the same place. And because they have different habits for cleaning their nest sites than honeybees, that often amounted to just sky-high, somewhat disgusting pest loads. It's one of the reasons we're speaking specifically about wax moth, because Greg, would you say that we had some pretty gross experiences with wax moth this last year?
Yeah, we found a nest that was pretty much, it was like on the floor of like a shed, and throughout the whole hive, there's wax moths crawling through the whole hive.
Yeah, we even found a bee with a wax moth kind of around its legs. It was pretty gross. And so I think after we've only really done this work for one season, we'd like to do more, but it seems like some of the sort of nesting habits of the normal nesting habits of bumblebees, where they would choose an entirely new nest site each year, are somewhat disturbed by some factors. And it seems like, based on my previous experience working with bumblebees in the United States, that the pest loads are pretty high. And I know that your experience is more closely tied to honeybee populations. I wondered if you could maybe, from your experience with doing honeybee inspection and work, would you say that there are climate change factors which are influencing how honeybees are affected by parasites and pests?
I would say it's a concern. I would struggle to find a specific piece of evidence, that I can definitely contribute to climate change. But as climate change does become a problem, it can can affect the length and duration of our growing or our beekeeping season, which certainly does give certain pests more time to complete their life cycle and build up populations, like small hive beetle or varroa mites become more damaging pests if they have a longer warm period to sort of parasitize the bee colonies.
Conversation with Annette Rafuse, Millbrook resident.
I'd like to introduce you to Annette Rafuse, my grandmother. Hi, Nan.
Hi, Gregory. How did you get involved with beekeeping and bumblebee keeping?
Mom and Sarah started with a group that they applied to through CMM's pollinator project, Women's in Beekeeping. And they got a nuke box, and we grew that into one hive. And I was the one that was helping them. Me and my father also helped them take care of it. And then I was also introduced to bumblebee keeping. And I was sort of hooked on that.
And Gregory, can you tell me about what bumblebees look like and their nesting habits? And can you show me anything that would help demonstrate that?
Oh yes, bumblebees are larger than honeybees and they are very fuzzy. I have some photos on my Chromebook I'll show you. You want some of them to look like. Sarah, can you pass me that? Thank you. Can you pass me that too? So here is a board I have of some bumblebees.
Oh, yes.
This one is known as a red-belted bumblebee. It is more harder to find than your typical common bumblebees.
Oh, okay.
And then this is a young worker bumblebee. And then this one is a drone. And this is a queen, a younger queen.
Oh, okay.
And here's some photos of their nests. So this is the wax that they make to have their queens and have their eggs, just a lot like honeybees, just a lot less orderly.
Yeah.
So that's why if you notice they're in clumps.
Yeah. I see the clumps all there.
Yeah. So these big ones are ones that the queen would be hatched in.
Mm-hmm.
And typically they fill those up with honey for the queen to eat.
Okay.
And then this is a picture of the side of the hive. This is inside. And as you can see,
wow.
you can see there's a couple bees sleeping. It looks like they're dead, but they're actually just hibernating.
Okay.
And there's more up close one.
Wow. Very nice. So why are you doing this work, Gregory?
Because I really enjoy working with bumblebees, and if I can make a change, saving them, or at least helping them out some, I'd really love to do that.
And Gregory, what do bumblebees eat, and how is the climate change changing their food?
Bumblebees like to eat pollen, just like honeybees. And how climate change is changing it is some of the foods that they would typically eat when they first wake up aren't already flowering for them to have the pollen. So the issue is with climate change is that it's getting warmer sooner.
And Gregory, why is it important for Mi'kmaq people to work with bumblebees?
As Mi'kmaq people, we are stewards to the land, air, and sea. And it's our responsibility to take care for them. Just as well as we are native to the land, so are the bumblebees.
Kevin Spicer is a past president of the Nova Scotia Beekeepers Association and an advocate for honeybee and pollinator health. He has spent time learning to rear bumblebees in captivity to better understand their life cycles and challenges.
Do you notice any climate change, things that have happened due to climate change, that bees are doing differently, like honey and bumblebees?
I don't know about bumblebees and bees per se, but in general, back when we had the hard winter, there seemed to be a lot of insects that got lower, right? And then we had a cold winter, and the following spring there was probably some I'm speaking of other insects that are in other crops, maybe a bit lower, but as you have more decent, open, warmer winters, more insects in general survive, even bumblebees.
During our conversation with Jason Sproul, we asked him to comment on pests of bumblebees and how climate change is affecting these pests. In our 2020 to 2021 season, we rescued over 125 bumblebee colonies, and every one was heavily infested with waxmoth larvae.
It's okay if I had like a suggestion, maybe.
Sure.
I was just thinking, like, what if they had like a mandatory like flap on bumblebee quads to keep like wax moths out from getting like infections on their like quads?
Okay. I guess I you know, it sounds like a fine idea. I'd have to see what something like that actually looks like. It affects the use of the hive.
Bumblebee pests like wax moth are surging due to warmer weather because of climate change. Additional nests brought into the province need to be designed to resist these pests. Here are some examples of wax moth destruction in bumblebee nests, including both wild colonies and managed habitats. These visuals reinforce the need for us to protect the bumblebees from pests such as wax moths.
High pest loads cause elevated failures to bumblebee colonies and is a problem that could get worse as average temperatures continue to rise with climate change. Installing cat flaps on managed hives could help reduce these threats and help preserve bumblebee populations. Based on our experience in the field, I recommend that the provincial government initiates a pilot project to test cat flaps or other approaches as a form of pest control for bumblebee hives. I also recommend the provincial government closely monitor how such pest control measures affect bumblebee populations and the critical role they serve as pollinators in the province.